Welcome to EJF Academy. I am Dr. Geetanjali. So, dear students, our new batch is going to be started for forestry optional. Course registration link is given in the description box. You can visit that. Today, I will tell you how you will be taught in the course. So, first of all, let's have a look at the syllabus of forestry optional. So, it has paper 1, it's section A. The first unit is silviculture. It has general silviculture principles. Unit number 2 is silviculture systems. Then silviculture, it has mangrove and coal desert, very important. Then silviculture of trees. Then section B, it has agroforestry, social forestry, joint forest management, and tribology. Then its unit 2 is soil, forest soils, forest conservation, and watershed management. Then unit 3 is environmental conservation and biodiversity. Unit 4 is tree improvement and seed technology. Then there is paper 2. It's section A. Its first unit is forest management and management systems. Unit 2 is forest working plan. Unit 3 is forest mensuration and remote sensing. Unit 4 is surveying and forest engineering. Then paper 2 section B. Its first unit is forest ecology and ethnobotany. Second unit is forest resources and utilization. Unit 3 is forest protection and wildlife biology. Unit 4 is forest economics and legislation. So this is complete syllabus of forestry. Now let's see what type of questions have been asked in the previous years. Because if you are preparing for any exam, you must know what type of questions have been asked in the previous year exams. This is the paper of 2024. This is paper 1. This is section A. First question is elucidate the phenology, silvicultural characters, and artificial regeneration of bamboos. There are lots of questions being asked about bamboo, so it's very important topic. Then there is a question about cold arid forest vegetation. Then next question is it is related to pollination. Give 4 examples of tree species for each of the following methods by which their flowers are pollinated. Pollination occurs in different ways. For example, anemophily, zoophily, entomophily, hydrophily. These are all the methods of pollination. This question is related to this pollination. Next question is Prosopis juliflora. Many questions are asked about this Prosopis. Its distribution and importance have been asked. Prosopis juliflora and Emblica officinalis. Then next question is about silvicultural systems. Then describe the following. This is regeneration falling, falling series, seedling falling, secondary falling, falling cycle. You have to explain all these. Then write in brief on the current scenario of the growth pattern of cold desert areas in India. See, the deserts are of two types. Hot deserts and cold deserts. Hot deserts are where temperature is very high and productivity is very low. Meaning of desert is low productivity. The areas where the productivity is very low. So the deserts can be in the hot places or high temperature places as well as in the cold temperature places. For example, Arctic, Antarctic, these are cold deserts. So this question is about the cold deserts located in India. Desertification is very important topic. What is the meaning of desertification? In deserts, there is some amount of production or productivity. Some type of species grow there. When the productivity of such species, which usually grow there, those species productivity decreases. That situation is called desertification. The restoration plan has also been asked here. The next is pruning. It's tending operation in planting forestry for improvement of trees or its timber. So this is the question paper. You can see here what type of questions have been asked in the previous year. So all the previous year questions will be solved in your forestry optional course. So before moving ahead, I would like to tell you what is the course features of forestry optional course. So number 1 is you will be provided the complete study material. Second is current affairs. The current affairs related to forestry is also very important for exam perspective. For example, if there is any change in any kind of forest laws, that is the part of current affairs, which will be completely covered in the course. Bi-weekly test will be conducted, revision classes will be there, and all the previous year's question paper will be solved. So students, you can register for the forestry optional course by visiting the registration link given in the description box. For any course related query, you can contact us on the given numbers. So now I will teach you unit 1, that is silviculture general. Paper 1 section A, it's 4 units. They are about silviculture. First is silviculture general, second is silviculture systems, third is silviculture mangrove and coal desert, and fourth is silviculture of trees. There are 4 branches of forestry: silviculture, forest maturation, management, and utilization. What is silviculture? Silviculture is theory and practices of raising forest crops. What is a crop? The general meaning of the crop is whatever cereals we grow. For example, wheat, rice, they are called crop. But in the forest, the meaning of crop is tree species. Whatever plantation we are doing in the forest, the plants we grow in the forest, they are called forest crops. Be it pine, be it cedar, or any other plant. Whatever plant species we are planting there, we call it forest crop. So the silviculture includes raising forest crops. To grow the forest crops, the method of raising tree crops, how we grow tree crops in the forest. Because every tree species has a basic requirement for its growth. For example, they have a specific temperature need, they have a specific water need. Some are shade loving plants and some are sun loving plants. So every plant has their own different requirements. That's why there is a different method to grow different tree species. Their growth and aftercare. Now, when we have grown the plants, when they grow up, even after that, we have to take care of them. So, how will we do it? And then, final harvesting. So, whenever tree crop is mature and we harvest it, then these tree species are used for different purposes. It can be economic purpose as well. For example, it can be used for resin. The tree wood can be used in different type of infrastructure. They are used in industries. So trees are harvested for all these purposes. So we study all these methods in silviculture, how tree crops are grown, what is the method of their aftercare, and what is the process of final harvesting. The next branch of forestry is forest mensuration. The meaning of forest mensuration is measurement of trees and forest. How we measure our tree species. We measure their dimensions, form, age, and growth. All these measurements comes under forest mensuration. So this is the proper measurement of the tree. Why this is necessary? It is necessary because it provides us quantitative data for forest management. If we know about the trees, their dimension, their age, their growth, then we can properly manage those trees. We can do research in those plants and we can make a proper plan for their plantation and their growth. This is forest mensuration. Then next is management. What is the meaning of management? Practical application of sequence technique. It means whenever we are growing trees, at that time our purpose is to grow a particular type of forest. So you can see here, these are different types of forest. You can see some kind of difference in these plantations. To get such type of plantations, we use different type of methods. That is called the management of forest. For the production of certain desired results, what we want, what type of forest we want to grow. Accordingly, we apply certain type of techniques to grow it. So this complete method comes under management part. Then there is utilization. Now this is the branch of forestry in which we have already grown the plants. We did the plantation. We applied all the techniques to grow the forest. And then we have grown a large forest. And now our plants are ready for harvesting. So now we can use these plants for some purpose. That is the utilization part. Now we will harvest those plants. We will market them. Marketing, conservation, applying the forest produce to a variety of uses. So where we can use them? First of all, we use the trees for timber. Timber is used in the wood-based industries. Then the plants are used for fuel. They are used for charcoal. They are used for pulp wood, which is used in the paper industry. Then they are used for plywood. So we can use them for variety of purposes. That is utilization. So where we will use these forest crops, that is also the part of forestry. So first and most important branch of forestry is silviculture. Meaning of silviculture is culture of tree species to develop them into forest. So what we are doing here? First, we are growing the tree species so that they are converted into the forest. That is silviculture. That means growing a forest through tree plantation. So silviculture includes all the measures which have relation with formation, preservation, and treatment of forest. It means that we have to do the formation, means we have to form a forest, or we have to preserve the forest. It means if we have a degraded forest, how we can preserve them, how we can regenerate them. All these comes under silviculture. So silviculture is concerned with regeneration. It means the forest that already exists, we will regenerate that, or we can go for plantation in a new area where there was no plants earlier. So it is concerned with regeneration, growth and development and harvesting, so that whatever is our forest crop or tree species, we can manage them. So what is our basic purpose? We have to grow a forest under silviculture. So how we will do it? We will grow a forest from a single tree. When we will plant several tree species, that will create a forest. So for that, first of all, we need to know how trees grow. We must have a basic understanding of the tree growth. So we will study about how trees grow, how there is tree germination, growth and their development. We need to understand what is the basic requirement for growth of the trees. So first let's know how trees are classified. Whitaker in 1969 presented 5 kingdom classification. According to him, all the species can be categorized into 5 major categories. Which are these categories? First one is Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia. So Monera includes microscopic organisms, for example, bacteria. Then there is Protista. These are also microscopic organisms. This includes organisms like protozoa, amoeba, paramecium. All this comes under Protista. Then fungi. It includes different types of fungal species. Fungus are mainly heterotrophs. What is the meaning of heterotroph? Heterotrophs means these species depend on others for their food. They cannot prepare their own food, like plants. Then next is plants kingdom. They include all the plant species. Plants are autotrophs. Autotrophs means they will carry out photosynthesis and prepare food from it. So these are plants. Then next is animalia. And all the animals are placed under this kingdom. Animals are also heterotrophs. They depends on others for their food requirement. So these are the 5 kingdoms according to Whitaker, and plants are placed under the kingdom Plantae. Now this plant kingdom, it has been further categorized into 2 categories. Number 1 is cryptogams, second is phanerogams. What are cryptogams? Cryptogams are those plants which has no seeds. They don't have any seeds. And phanerogams include the plants who have seeds. Now the cryptogams means non-seeded plants. Cryptogams are of 3 types. The first one is who have no true roots, stems or leaves. They do not have any true roots, stems or leaves. For example, algae. The next category is they have some roots and leaf-like structures. So these are the primitive plants. They don't have any true roots, stems or leaves. Then there are mosses, liverworts, bryophytes. In these plants, there are some roots and leaf-like structures are present. Then there is third category. They have true roots, stems and leaves. This category includes ferns, horsetails, pteridophyta. So these are cryptogams. These plants have no seeds. Then there are phanerogams. These plants produce seeds. Phanerogams are of 2 types. First one is gymnosperms and second is angiosperms. Gymnosperm plants do not have flowers. They don't have flowers, they don't have fruits. Angiosperm plants have flowers. This is the main difference between the two. So gymnosperms have no flowers. Gymnosperms are of different types. Some plants have needle-like leaves. For example, conifers. You must have seen pine plants. Another type of plants have wide leaves. For example, cycads, gingos. They are under wide leaves category. So these are the gymnosperm plants who have no flowers. Then there are angiosperms. These plants produce flowers. See, under silviculture, the plants which we have to grow in the forest, these plants are mainly gymnosperms and angiosperms. These 2 categories of plants which produce seeds. These are the higher plants. And these cryptogams, these are the lower plants. So we have to study about the higher plants, the phanerogams, which includes gymnosperms and angiosperms. We have to study these 2 categories under silviculture because in the forestry we grow gymnosperm and angiosperms mainly. So we have to study about gymnosperms and angiosperms. So first one is gymnosperms. What is the meaning of the word gymnosperm? It is made up of 2 Latin words. First one is gymnos and another is sperma. Gymnos means naked and sperma means seed. It means the type of plants in which the seeds are naked. What does it mean? You must have seen the fruits and you must have seen the seeds inside the fruits. For example, if you eat an apple, there is a seed present inside the apple. But in the gymnosperm plants, the seeds are not present inside the fruit. For example, you can see here the plants. These are the gymnosperm plants. You can see here the seeds of these plants. This is seed. This is also a seed. These seeds are not inside any fruit. These seeds are visible from the outside. You can see them. That's why we call them naked seeds. It means they are not present inside any fruit. So these are gymnosperms. And then angiosperms. In the angiosperms, the seeds are present inside the fruits. For example, this is pea. Where are the seeds of the peas? The seeds are inside the fruit. Similarly, in the tomatoes, the seeds are present inside the tomatoes. The seed is present inside the lychee. In any other fruit as well, like the apple, mango, the seeds are present inside the fruits. So these plants are known as angiosperms. And the seeds which are without any fruit, they are called as gymnosperms. Here you can see these are the seeds. These are all seeds. So these are gymnosperms. Now we can see the examples of gymnosperms. For example, Devdar, Citrus deodara, its scientific name. Cheer pine, its scientific name is Pinus roxburghi. Scientific names are very, very important, which you need to remember. Then there is Thunair, that is Taxus baccata. Giant redwood, that is Sequoia gigantea. This is Devdar tree, Citrus deodara. Cheer pine, Pinus roxburghi. This is Thunair, Taxus baccata. This is giant redwood. This is a large tree, scientific name Sequoia gigantea. In your syllabus, you can see Unit 4 Silviculture of trees. There are several species of plants mentioned here. For example, Acacia catechu, Acacia nilotica, other species of Acacia, Albizia, Anthocypelus, Azadirachta indica, bamboo species. Many questions are asked from bamboos. Acacia casuarina, Cedrus deodara. See, this is a gymnosperm plant. Dalbergia sisu, sesame tree. Dipterocarpus, amplica, Eucalyptus species, Pinus roxburghi, Papulus, Pterocarpus, Prosopis, Prosopis juliflora, Centellum album, Shoria robusta. All these trees which have been given here, you have to study the silviculture of the trees. It means you have to study how these trees grow, how they are planted in the forest, how they germinate, how these trees are converted into a forest. So you have to study all these factors about these trees. So now we study about the gymnosperms. We need to have a basic knowledge of trees, like how they grow, what is their basic morphology, so that they can be planted in the forest and we can grow a forest out of them. So now let's study about the roots of gymnosperms. Gymnosperms have mainly the tap roots. This is a taproot. Taproot means it has a main root and rest are its lateral branches. The second type is adventitious roots. It doesn't have any main root. It has all the lateral branches. This is called adventitious root. So in the gymnosperms, they have mainly tap roots, not the adventitious roots. There are some plant species under gymnosperms which are associated with mycorrhiza. What is the meaning of mycorrhiza? Myco means fungus and rhiza means roots. It means these plants' roots have fungus inside them. For example, in the Pinus species, their roots have fungus inside them. This is the plant and this is the extensive root of the plant. And here you can see these are the fungus and the root has made association with this fungus. This is a type of symbiosis which is known as mutualism. Under this type of association, both the species benefit each other. The fungus species gets a shelter inside the root of the plant and also the plant gets benefited from the fungus because the fungus are very efficient in mineralizing the soil. Soil has several type of minerals which are bound with the soils. For example, soil have phosphorus, nitrogen, sulfur, which are needed by the plant. The fungus mineralizes all these elements. The fungus release acid. And because of these acids, the minerals get separated from the soil. The minerals are associated with the soil particles. For example, this phosphorus is bound with the soil particles. Now the acid released by fungus dissolves this phosphorus in the soil. And now the plant can absorb this phosphorus. So the fungus makes minerals available to the plant. So such type of relation is known as mutualism. So a type of beneficial symbiosis association is made by these plants of gymnosperms, especially the Pinus species. Apart from this, in some gymnosperm plants, the coralloid roots are found in them. For example, in the Cycas species, this is a Cycas plant. Here you can see these are the coralloid roots. This is the real picture of a plant. This is the coralloid root. Now what is this coralloid roots? Inside these coralloid roots, there are nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria present inside them. So you must know plants are not able to directly absorb the atmospheric nitrogen. In the atmosphere, approx 78% of nitrogen is present, but plants cannot absorb this nitrogen directly. They need nitrogen in a certain form. They require nitrogen in the form of nitrate or nitrite. Plant can absorb nitrogen in the form of only nitrate or nitrite. So these nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria which are found in the plant roots, these bacteria make nitrogen available to these plants in the bioavailable form nitrogen. It means the bacteria provide the nitrogen in the form which is absorbed by the plants. So these roots in which these cyanobacteria resides, these roots are called coralloid roots. These types of roots are especially found in cycas plants. This cycas species is also a gymnosperm plant. Now let's study about angiosperms. Angiosperms are flowering plants. These plants produce flowers. Flowers are the reproductive structures of these plants. There are ovules present inside the ovaries. This is the flower. This is the ovary. This complete structure is ovary. There is ovule inside the ovary. These small structures which you can see here, these are the ovules. Now when the pollen grain reaches this flower, these are the female parts. So when the pollen grains, when they reach on these female parts, then there is a fertilization process which takes place. And after the process of fertilization, this complete ovary, it will be converted into a fruit. So such type of fruit will be made out of it. And these ovules which are inside this ovary, and these ovules will be converted in the seeds. They will form seeds. So this is how a fruit is formed from a flower. So these are the angiospermic plants. That's why in the angiosperm plants, the seed is inside the fruit. While in the gymnosperms, because they have no flowers, that's why their seeds are naked seeds. They are not inside any fruit. Only in the angiosperms, the seeds are found inside the fruit. Angiosperms can be divided into two categories based on the number of cotyledons. In these plant seeds, there are cotyledons present in them. On the basis of those cotyledons, they are of two types, dicotyledons and monocotyledons. In short, they are also known as dicots and monocots. Now, what are these cotyledons? Plant embryos in seeds have cotyledons. So this is the seed. Inside these seeds, the cotyledons refers to the first seed leaf. This is a seed and this is a seed. This is the monocot seed. Inside this monocot seed, you can see this is the single cotyledon. That's why it is called the monocot. In this dicot, you can see two cotyledons. This one is one cotyledon and this is the second cotyledon. This is one and this is two. So this is dicot. So inside a seed, how many cotyledons are found there? One or two. According to that number, these can be of two types, monocot and dicot. Now we can further differentiate the monocots and dicots. You can see here the seed of monocot. There is a single cotyledon. In this dicot, you can see two cotyledons. This is one and this is two. Their roots are also different. In the roots, the vascular bundles are found. Vascular bundle means xylem and phloem. See, what is the role of xylem and phloem? What is the function of xylem? Xylem's function is water transportation inside the plant. These are the vein types of structures and they supply water inside the plant. And what is the function of phloem? Whatever the food production is inside the plant, food is produced in the leaves. Phloem delivers that food in the different parts of the plant. So these are the functions of xylem and phloem. These two in the combined form are known as vascular bundles. So vascular bundles are found in the roots as well as stem. In the monocot plants, in their roots, the xylem and phloem are found in a ring. Here you can see this ring of vascular bundles. Inside the dicot plants, they are present differently. You can see this structure, this is xylem, and in between these xylems like this, the phloem are present here. So there is a difference of the arrangement in both type of plants. So when I will teach you the full structure of this in detail, you will understand this concept in a better way. Here is only the overview. So right now we are just looking at the overview of these plants. Now there is a difference in the stems as well. Vascular bundles are found in stems as well. They are scattered in the stem like this, you can see here. In dicots, they are present in a ring. You can see here, this is the ring. In this, xylem and phloem both are together. One is xylem and phloem, They are together inside this. I will teach you all this in detail later on. Now the leaf structure is also different in monocot and dicot. In the monocots, there is parallel arrangement of veins. Like you can see here, like this. This type of parallel arrangement of veins is present in the monocots. And the veins in the dicot plant leaf, they are present in the net form. This is the main vein of the leaf, and then these are the lateral veins. So any type of arrangement can be there, but the veins are not parallel in the dicots. While in the monocots, the veins are always parallel. Now there is a difference in the flowers as well. In the monocots, the flowers are present in 3 or multiple of 3s. Like here you can see, these are the 3 petals. While in the dicots, the flower parts in 4 or 5 or in their multiples they are present. Like you can see here, there are 5 petals are present in this flower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will teach you all these things in details later on. So the dicots, this one, these dicotyledon plants, they are highly diverse. There are many species of dicots are present here. Approx 2 lakh species have been recorded as of now. All the broadleaf trees, they belong to dicots. Now let's see about the morphological characteristics of trees. Morphology means outer appearance. In a typical tree, there are 2 parts of the tree. One will be the underground part, that is root, and another is above ground part, which includes stem and crown. This is the stem, also known as trunk, and this above portion, this is known as crown. Crowns include leaves, twigs, branches. All these together, they are known as crown. The crown and branches. So the crown of the tree or the structure of the tree, it includes stem, branches, leaves, and reproductive structures. All these structures are included in the crown. Now the shape and the size of the crown. Like you can see here, the shape of this tree's crown is conical. It is like a cone. The crown shape is influenced by the environment. In which environment that plant is found, the crown shape will be influenced by the environment. Basically, the crown shape is a type of adaptation. For example, this conical plant, these are found in the temperate areas. In temperate areas, there is very low temperature, especially where there is snowfall. You can find them in the higher Himalayas. So this conical shape is an adaptation. Why they adapt this conical shape? Because in these areas of temperate region, there is snowfall. If this tree shape was like this, the snow could have accumulated on these trees, and this will result in the damage of the tree. But this cone shape of the tree, because of this shape, snow cannot accumulate on the tree. It will slide down, and this prevents the damage of the tree structure. So this conical shape is a kind of adaptation which helps the tree to survive in the temperate environment. So the environment of the region decides the crown shape of the tree. Other than that, the majority of tree which we see around us, their crown shape is more or less oblong or oval shape. For example, this tree, this is the oval shape. This is also oval shape. This is oval shape. Such type of trees you will find around you. So this is oval shape or oblong shape. Then there is umbrella shape of the trees, especially in the Acacia planifrons tree. This tree is Acacia planifrons. This crown shape is umbrella shaped crown. You can see here, this is the shape and this is umbrella type. So which tree is found in which type of environment, what is the temperature there, what is the kind of wind blowing there, all this decides the structure of the crown. Now next is the habit of the tree. It means whether it is deciduous or evergreen. Again, it depends on in which climate that tree is found. What are the deciduous trees? In deciduous trees, leaf fall is found in such type of trees. These trees have leaf fall in a particular month of a year. And which month they will have leaf fall? It will be in the dry month when there is no rainfall. It means the environmental condition is very dry. There is shortage of water. At that time, these trees have leaf fall. This is also kind of adaptation because in the leaf of the trees, the leaves contain stomata. Stomata are the pores. These are the stomata. In the tree, the root is absorbing the water from the ground, and from this stomata, the water comes out of the plant. This process is known as transpiration. And because of this transpiration process, there is a lot of water loss in the trees. And if there is the dry condition or dry month, there is already a huge shortage of water. And at that time, if water is lost from the leaves of the trees, then the plant will shed its leaves. This is known as the leaf fall. And such type of trees are known as deciduous trees. So such type of trees which undergo leaf fall, they are known as deciduous trees. So these trees are found in the type of climate where in some month of the year there is dry condition. There will be the water shortage in those months. And for how long that leafless condition will exist, it also depends on the type of plant. For example, in Shoria robusta, which is also known as sal, this is this Shoria robusta. In this plant, the leaf fall occurs from 1 week up to 10 days. Other than that, in Hymenodictyon, leaf fall is found over 6 months. This is Hymenodictyon. This tree has leaf fall for about 6 months. So it also varies for how long the leaf fall will occur in a particular plant species. So such type of plants are known as deciduous plants. Other than that, some type of trees like teak, cedar, this is teak, this is cedar, this is also known as thun. These are practically evergreen trees because they are found in the moist and warm localities. So they don't need to undergo leaf fall situation. So it depends on the climate whether the plant will have leaf fall or not. Apart from this, there is very exceptional example of sandalwood that is also known as chandan. Its scientific name is Santalum album. Sandalwood is obligatory root parasite. This is sandalwood plant and this is host plant. So the roots of the sandalwood plant, they get attached with the roots of this host plant. In the sandalwood plant, the hostorias are found in the roots. Now let's suppose this is the root of host plant and these are the roots of sandalwood. In this sandalwood root, hostoria are found and these hostoria will attached to the root of this host plant like this, and these hostoria will absorb nutrient from the host plant. So these roots act like a parasite and they absorb nutrients from the host plant roots. So this sandalwood, it is a hemiparasitic plant. It means it is a partial parasite. It can do photosynthesis. Through photosynthesis, it can make its own food. But for the essential nutrients, every plants require certain type of nutrients. For example, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So for these essential nutrients, this sandalwood plant depends on host plant. So these hostorias, which are present in the root of sandalwood, they penetrate inside the root of the host plant and absorb the essential nutrient from the host plant. So sandalwood plant is an evergreen plant as well as deciduous plant, depending on which type of climate it is found. If it is found in the tropical area, it becomes the evergreen plant. It means there will be no leaf fall in this. But if it is grown at a place where there is a dry season, then it acts like a deciduous plant. It means leaf fall will occur in this. Now in trees, the leaf structure also varies. They are of diverse type. Diverse leaf structure also shows a type of adaptation in plants. For example, in sal leaves, this is the sal leaves. This is sal tree. These are the leaves of the sal tree. These leaves are large and thick. Now in pine tree, the needle-shaped leaves are found. Now these both types of leaves, the sal leaves and pine leaves, these do not decompose easily. So when they fell on the ground, they form a very thick layer above the ground, above the forest floor. Now this thick layer of leaves get accumulated because these leaves do not decompose easily. So that's why they remain on the ground for a long period of time. And this is quite a hazard because it becomes quite fire prone. The risk of forest fire increase in that area. Also, regeneration is also negatively affected. It means the seeds on the forest floor, which will grow upward to become a plant, they will also get negatively affected because of all these leaves on the ground. While in some plants, the plant leaves are very thin and fragile. These thin leaves easily gets decomposed. See, what is decomposition? The leaves are decomposed by microbes, mainly the bacteria and fungus. Bacteria and fungus both decomposes the plant parts and leaves and stems. So if the leaves are thin and fragile, then these microbes can easily decompose these leaves. And when these leaves are easily decomposed, the minerals which are present inside the leaves, they will come on the soil. These minerals include phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, and these nutrients come on the soil after the decomposition of these leaves. And then the new trees which are growing there, they will absorb these nutrients and grow faster. Thus, it increases the fertility of the soil. So it means this type of leaves, the thin and fragile leaves, they increase the fertility of the soil. Now, next is seed germination. So, how does a seed germinates? Let's understand it. Under silviculture, we have to grow gymnosperms and angiosperm plants so that we can develop a forest from them. So, when will the forest develop? When we will be able to grow a plant from a seed. So, how the seed germinates in these plants? It is very important to understand this process. The seed producing organisms, all the plants which produce seeds, they are known as spermatophyta. And spermatophyta can be subdivided into gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now, in these plants, the reproductive structures, they grow from a reproductive bud. This flower will develop in an angiospermic plant. So, this reproductive bud, first of all, this reproductive bud is produced and then it develops and forms a full-fledged flower. So, what is a flower? It is a reproductive organ, and fertilization takes place inside this flower. And how the fertilization takes place? When the pollen grain reaches this flower, and after that, fertilization takes place. And after fertilization, a seed is formed. So, when the seed gets the favorable conditions, then this seed starts germinating, and after germination, it converts into a tree. Now, phases of seed germination. So, how a seed germinates? The seed is a ripened ovule. This is ovary. This whole organ is an ovary, and inside it, there are ovules. These are the ovules. Now, when this ovule is ready, seeds are made from it. Now, this seed, it has different parts. Seed's outer protective layer is called seed coat. Inside this seed, there is a stored food. When the process of germination takes place inside the seed, at that time the seed utilizes this stored food for energy. And there is an embryo in this seed. From this embryo, shoots and roots are germinated. Now, for the germination of this seed, three essential conditions are there. First of all, viability of seeds. So, whatever seed we are planting, we try to grow it. That seed must be viable. It means that should be alive. Because if we keep a seed for a long time duration, then there is a possibility that it it can lose its viability. It means it can become dead. So for seed germination, we cannot use a dead seed. There should be a viability in it. The embryo should be alive. The seed's embryo should be alive and it should be capable of germination. So this is the first condition. The second condition is appropriate environmental conditions. It means whatever the seed requires for germination, like water, temperature range, there should be a proper temperature range. Some plants need very little temperature to germinate, while some seeds require more temperature for germination. Also, oxygen is required by the seeds. It also needs light. All that should be available. Then breaking of dormancy. The seed is in dormant state. Dormant state means that there is no activity happening in it. When we sow it in the ground and water is given to it, then it comes into active state. So we have to break its dormancy. In some seeds, embryo remains dormant. So we have to break its dormancy. When we provide it with some favorable environment, like if it gets proper water, temperature, sunlight, etc., then germination starts in it. There are three phases of seed germination. The first one is phase 1. What will happen in this? Initial phase of germination. Now the seeds are usually dry. They have less than 10% of moisture and they are also covered by a seed coat which is dry and hard. Seed is covered by that seed coat. We have to break this seed coat so that germination can take place in it. So first of all, we sow the seed in the soil and then it is provided with water. Now this seed will absorb water. Due to this, its seed coat, which is the outer layer, it breaks. Now when the seed coat breaks, water absorption starts. And when water is absorbed inside it, the weight of the seed starts increasing due to water uptake. And after this, the process of germination will start in this. The second phase is lag phase. Now when the water has come inside the seed, means seed has absorbed the water. Then active metabolic activities start in the seed. There are several enzymes in this seed. Stored food is also there. So first of all, cellular activities takes place in it. Its mitochondria gets activated. Mitochondria, which was earlier in an inactive state. What is mitochondria? It is the powerhouse of the cell. All the enzymatic activities that take place inside the cell, all the energy that the cell gets, through whom does it all come? It comes through mitochondria only. Now, to activate the mitochondria, it needs to be rehydrated. So, as water reaches it, mitochondria gets activated and enzymatic activities start in it. Then, initiation of protein synthesis. Now, what will happen? We hydrate our seed, give it water, then, after hydration, polysomes are formed in it. After polysome formation, mRNA gets activated. Now, what is the function of RNA? Its function is providing information for protein synthesis. The cell gets information about what kind of proteins to make. The mRNA guides this process, and then the synthesis of proteins take place in it. The proteins are necessary for cell growth. Only when the proteins develop inside the seed, the stem and root will emerge from it. Only then it will germinate. So in this way, after hydration, proteins start forming here. Then comes the radical protrusion. Now the cells of the seed enlarge. The cells grow and the radical emerge from it. This is the radical. You can see here. The tips of the radical undergoes many cell divisions and it becomes very elongated. Now this seed has two main parts. One is the epicotyle and other is the hypocotyle. The upper portion is the epicotyle. The stem of the plant will emerge from it. And from the hypocotyle, the root part will come out from this. Look here, you can see this area is hypocotyle and this is root coming out of it. So the cell walls in hypocotyle and radical, this one is the radical which has become elongated, and the region of the hypocotyle, this region, the cells of this region are elongated. They expand so that it can elongate. The cells in the seed tissues which are surrounding the radical, this portion, also become very flexible so that the seeds can expand inside the radical and it can elongate. Seedling emergence. So now through this process, the seedling emerges here. Look inside this seed. There are two types of meristems. One is the shoot meristem and other is the root meristem. What are meristems? Meristems are those cells which divide very rapidly and keep on dividing. So the shoot meristem will form the upper part of the shoot and the root meristem will form the lower part, which is root. Their elongation takes place here and germination will take place from that. Then epicotyle, this region. See, what is it responsible for? For stem part of plant. Epicotyle is necessary for the development of stem portion. So it is essential in the early development of the seed embryo. And what does it do? It will push the plant above the soil. See, the plant has to come up now. So whose work is it? Epicotyle. And what is hypocotyle? It is present in the lower region between the points of attachment of cotyledons. See, there are two cotyledons. If we make its structure in this way, hypocotyle is present between them and the radical comes out from it. This portion. What will this portion form after going down? It will form the root. So from where will the root come out? From the hypocotyle. The stem will emerge from the epicotyle. Now the germination of the seed is influenced by environmental factors. Mainly there are four environmental factors: temperature, water, gases and light. The first one is temperature. Temperature is very important. It affects the germination, the percentage of germination, and also affects the speed at which the germination will take place. So temperature has three temperature points. One is minimum, optimum and maximum. See, optimum temperature means this is the most favorable temperature range. And if this temperature range remains, means if the seed gets the optimum temperature, then it will germinate as quickly as possible. The optimum temperature varies in majority of the seeds between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, but it can be as low as 15% for some plants. Actually, it varies from seed to seed. Different plant species germinate at different temperatures. Minimum temperature means the temperature below which germination will not take place. And maximum temperature is the temperature above which germination will not take place. So what do we call the range of temperature? The most favorable temperature is called optimum temperature. So if the temperature is low, then the speed of germination reduces. But even if the temperature is very high, then also the speed of germination reduces. The speed of germination will be maximum only at the optimum level. Now there are some plants that require very high temperature, mainly in the region of bush fires. When the seeds are exposed to fire, only then their dormancy will break and then they will germinate. So some plants need fire to germinate. So in this way, there are different temperature ranges in which the plants germinate. Then next is moisture. So moisture is very important. We have seen that when the plant gets water, when the seed gets water, then only the enzymatic activities start inside it. Only then it will germinate. So water acts as a limiting factor. That is, if the temperature is also favorable, optimum temperature is available, nutrients are also available, but if the water is not available, then seed will not germinate. So water is very important. Now how much water is going inside the seed depends on the water potential between the seed and the soil outside it, which is also known as osmotic potential. What does osmotic potential mean? It means presence of solute. For example, this is a seed. Now, what is inside the seed? There is some material. What do we call that material? That material is called solute. And the solute is also present in the soil outside. Means some material is present in the soil as solute. Now, if the density is more inside the seed than outside, then water will go inside it, because water will always flow from low concentration to high concentration. Means if there is high concentration of solute inside the seed, see what is the movement of water always from low concentration to high concentration. Means the amount of solute is more here. Low concentration means amount the solute is less here. So what will be the movement of water? It will be towards high concentration, so that the concentration of solute becomes equal at both the places. So in the same way, if there is more concentration of solute inside the seed, then water will go inside it. But if the external medium, that is the soil, it has more solute present in it, then water will not go inside the seed. Now, when does this condition occur? This condition occurs when very high salinity is found in the soil. If there is very high salinity in the soil, it means that the concentration of solute is high outside. Then the water will not go inside the seed. So in saline soils where salt is in excess, there is a strong negative pressure. It means that water will come out. If there is some water in the seed, then it will also come out. This condition is found firstly where high salinity is present inside the soil, and secondly where the drainage system is not proper, where irrigation is taking place but water is not coming out from there. It is not draining out properly. So what happens in that situation? Whatever water is there, salt is always present in the water. If that water does not come out, then the salt gradually starts accumulating in the soil itself, and due to that salinity increase. So that is why it is necessary to have a proper drainage system. So it is very important to have a proper drainage system so that salts do not accumulate in the soil. If salts accumulate in the soil, then seed germination will not happen, because then the water will not be able to go inside the seed. If there is a salinity issue in the soil, then the seeds are planted several inches below. That is, if there is salinity in the top soil, then the seeds are sown very deep in the soil so that they can absorb water, and then germination can take place from it. So this is how it is managed. Then the third factor for seed germination is light. Light is very important. Light is required for the germination of seeds. For some seeds, especially some plants which are found in temperate regions, they need pre-chilling, cold treatment. It means that before germination, the seeds have to reach a minimum temperature. For example, when they are exposed to a temperature of up to 2 degrees Celsius, they will reach a pre-chilled condition, and only then they will germinate. So both things are needed. Firstly, they need light, a particular amount of light, and secondly, they also need pre-chilling. Light has both types of actions: dormancy induction and dormancy breaking. Light can also induce dormancy. It means it can make a seed dormant, and in some seeds, it can also help in germination of seed, breaking its dormancy. It depends on which species the seed belongs to. The effect of light on germination depends on its wavelength and photoperiod. So what is the wavelength of the light? Light is of different wavelengths. The wavelength range of visible light is from 400 nm to 700 nm. That is visible light. Apart from this, there is also infrared light. So the wavelength of the light also affects whether germination will take place or not. And a photoperiod. Photoperiod means for how long the light is available. Is it available for 10 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours? We call it photoperiod. So that also affects germination. Now it has been observed that the seeds which are light sensitive, that is those which depends on photoperiod, are of very small size, and such seeds are sown at shallow depth. That means they are sown very close to the ground so that they can get proper light. Some plants need a lot of light for germination. For example, begonia, coleus, primrose are examples. Then aeration. Now the seed also do respiration. There is also exchange of gases in it. So the seed needs oxygen for metabolic processes, means respiration, just like we need oxygen for respiration. Similarly, the seeds which are germinating also need oxygen. So oxygen availability is very important. Now the soil, where water logging condition is very high. If it is completely filled with water, then the solubility of oxygen in water is very low. Even if oxygen is present there, that oxygen will go out. If more water accumulates here, then it is necessary to have a proper drainage system because oxygen has low solubility in water. So that's why drainage system should be proper, because aeration is also very important for germination. Then carbon dioxide. See, now it also needs carbon dioxide. High level of carbon dioxide has positive effect. Carbon dioxide is also important to overcome dormancy. When seeds respire, carbon dioxide is formed in the process of respiration itself. But if there is a condition of poor aeration, the aeration is not proper, then that carbon dioxide can also accumulate here. So proper aeration, proper drainage system, these are very important. Then nutrition. Now, if seed is germinating, then it will definitely need nutrients. So for that, fertilizers are applied like nitrogen, phosphorus, also potassium. These are needed. That is why proper fertilizers are also given to the seeds. Now, there are mainly 4 stages of tree growth. First is seedling, sapling, pole, and tree. So here you can see that first there will be a seed. The seed will grow. It will make a seedling, then sapling, then the pole is made, then the mature tree is made. We will study all this in detail later on. Then forest regeneration. Now, if we have to regenerate the forest, then we will have to start from the seed itself. For forest regeneration, we do plantation and new forest grows here. There can be 3 methods of forest regeneration. One is natural regeneration. Natural regeneration means that if the forest area has been damaged a lot, if it is left undisturbed without any disturbance, then it has the capacity to regenerate itself. We call it natural regeneration. The forest can regenerate itself on its own. Artificial regeneration means if there is so much destruction that natural regeneration is not possible, then in such cases we need to do plantation. So that is called artificial regeneration. Then the third is the combination of natural and artificial regeneration. We use both. We use the natural capacity of the forest and then we also use artificial plantation. In your syllabus, this is natural and artificial regeneration of forest. So what we have seen till now is how the seeds grow and which plants are important from the perspective of silviculture, in which gymnosperms and angiosperms are very important. That is what we have to study here. Let's see some questions related to this from the previous year. Like this, discuss the distribution and regeneration of Cedrus deodara, Pinus roxburghii. So it is regeneration. That means we have to study about them in detail. Then phenology, silvicultural characteristics, artificial regeneration of bamboo. Many questions are asked on bamboo. Distribution of Prosopis juliflora, Umbilica officinalis. Then distribution and regeneration of Cedrus deodara, Pinus roxburghii. Then again there is a question about Dalbergia sisu, Eucalyptus teriticornis, all these plants. So in this silviculture of trees, all the trees are given here. You have to study each tree individually because we can see from this silviculture techniques of some trees or the other, all these have been asked in the exam. So all these complete questions of previous years will be made available to you in the course. So students, you can join the forestry optional course for your preparation. I will tell you the course features again. Complete study material will be provided and all the current affairs related to forestry will also be made available to you. Also weekly test, revision classes, plus all the questions of previous years will be made available. So students, you can register for forestry optional course by visiting the registration link. For any course related query, you can also call on the given number.